Two of your favorite Chiefs are going to be back in Kansas City next season. Travis Kelce, Trey Smith, how'd they get there? What's going to happen? Today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome in, Chiefs Kingdom. Hope that you're having a good day. Thanks for making your first listen. Check out another Locked On show for your next listen. You might have been watching the Combine and heard a little bit of something. We're going to run it down for you. All the information that we have as of now and what it means for this team in particular. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, where we're going to have the athletic matrix out and about ready, as well as all the production stats and our draft guide. NFL tried to pull off something very, very similar. You can check it out at IQ. They're trying to redo our stats that we've been doing for 10 years. Get the original and check it out at rogueapc.com. You can find my content over at NFL 33 and RGR Football. And this is Chris Clark, the owner, operator, writer extraordinaire of KC Chiefs Corner. So check him out over there. How do you maximize the players that you're getting back, especially the veterans? That's coming up later in the show. Specifically, what does the Trey Smith tag mean? It is a franchise tag. We'll get through the details here coming up in a little bit, but we start with the GOAT, at least at the tight end position in my mind. Travis Kelce announced that he returned in 2025. Didn't take him till March 14th. Needed to sort out a little bit, but he got there. I think that's great. This is what I had expected, and I'm glad to see it happen. Are you surprised?
A little bit. And I do think it's kind of funny because I literally did a show yesterday about how to maximize the Chiefs cap and where they could get possibly for 2025, and had them probably getting close to, I'd say maximum really. The reality is probably around 50 or 60 million is probably with the max that they could get to. Could they get higher? Yes. But with Kelce coming back, that's obviously going to be lower than that. And that's fine with me. I'm happy he's going to be back. The other thing, and I know we'll talk about this later, but it affects everything salary cap wise. The whole Trey Smith thing is a big deal as well. So missed on that, but what are you going to do? It all came out today as we're sitting here.
Both have implications on the cap. We will get to that. But this is something that I think he had to take a couple of weeks and think it over. Good for Travis Kelce for taking his time. But in the end, he's not done. He's got unfinished business. I know Chris Jones made some comments on social. A lot of folks attributed that to meaning Travis Kelce. And I wasn't sure at the time. Maybe that was true. Maybe it wasn't. We don't know. But clearly, he feels that there is unfinished business out there. There is another championship in this roster. The stars feel it in Mahomes and now Kelce and Chris Jones. And they're going to have some help. But they have to get him back in the fold. What happens next is he's got to get a little bit more time away. I'm worried that this decision came, more than 2 weeks before it had to, because maybe he's got stuff on his calendar, and that's what concerns me this year.
Well, it's going to be interesting. I'm going to be curious to see what he does. I did think I saw Chase Daniel actually say something, and I thought it was really interesting that he went there. Kelce, I think, had 97 catches this year, had something like 130 targets. Which is a lot for a tight end, but his numbers are way down. Mm-hmm. The whole reason I bring that up is because the reality is he's not the player he was 2 or 3 seasons ago. He doesn't have to be. But one of the things he is that people don't give him enough credit for is one of the biggest emotional leaders that is on this team. He is the emotional center of that offense and of this team in general. And that would be a huge loss. So him coming back in 2025 is great for that. And the other reality is, let's think about it this way. If they bring back Hollywood Brown, they're going to have Rashee Rice and they're going to have Xavier Worthy. Kelce doesn't even have to be one of the top 2 or 3 options. He could be option number 4. And I'm not saying he will be option number 4, but the ability to be that type of guy gets him to where he will be much more valuable with what he does on the field.
Well, and I will tell you this. I would argue that he should be. Because you have to prepare. Yes, it's great that he's back. He's got 1 more year under contract. I can see this 2025 campaign being the last one. So you better start making that adjustment. You better start feeding Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown, whoever comes back, whoever you acquire next. Because the end of that next season, a year from now, you don't want to have to push the panic button. Well, so you better start coming to him third.
Yeah, and the bigger thing, and you kind of touched on that a little bit, but I'll expand on it. And I said this last night. If Kelce is going to be gone, this year, and obviously we know he's not, but if he was going to be gone this year, Andy Reid is going to have to switch the offense. I'm not saying he has to completely switch it in 2025, but he needs to start going that direction. He needs to start changing who the focus of the offense is going to be. It cannot be around the tight end unless they're going to find somebody that can step in and play to Kelce's strengths, which they don't have currently on the roster.
I'm going to say this in a very, very simple way. I don't think they have to change the offense if you do one thing in particular. If you change the focus from speedy, crazy, jet motion, whatever out of the slot to an old school, the way he was in Philly, big slot that does a lot of things that Travis does. The possession receiver underneath. If you go that direction, I think you can still look at that as the first feed, which then plays into high shells, bringing the defense down and allowing you to take your shots. I think that is a possibility.
We'll see. I'm really going from the perspective of life after Kelce, not necessarily even what they're going to have this year. But my thought process is if you're going to have to make an adjustment to the offense, start making an adjustment now and get going in the right direction, because you're going to have Rashee Rice for another 2 years. You're going to have Xavier Worthy for another, 2, 3, 4 years, whatever. So get the offense going in that direction and use Kelce for the skill set that he still brings and still be able to sprinkle him in.
Yeah, I completely agree. Now later in the show, after a couple of breaks, we're going to talk about how to maximize these two players and the offense around them. But I think we're going to have to do like a mini in and out about Travis Kelce in particular. We'll get to that coming up. But right next, after this, Trey Smith, he's getting tagged. They have announced that. How and why is what we have to get into, and that's coming next. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. There's no better place to get into it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place your live bets throughout the game, start to finish. Even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can get there. You can stay in the action. And if you want to go looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into same-game parlay. You got to love that because it's a new aspect. You can just roll it into it. If you're backing your team for a late-game rally or picking up a player who just hit a three and you think he's getting really, really hot, you can do that in the app, and it makes it super easy. Right now, our new FanDuel customers are getting $150 in bonus bets if you first get a $5 bet that wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets right now. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL and the NBA. And make sure you get all the information on the Combine, which has officially begun tonight over at RogueAPC.com. You can get in there, get the athletic matrix, get the draft guide. We are rolling full steam and adding to our crew over there. Appreciate you guys checking it out at RogueAPC.com. Now, a little bit later or earlier this afternoon, it was the Trey Smith news that came down that the Chiefs do plan to put the franchise tag on him at the offensive lineman rate of 23.4 for this year. Nothing surprises me about that. I floated this concept a week or two ago that if you just can't get there, you got to go ahead and do it because you can't take any risks. You can't let him go in free agency. You hope for a comp pick. Trey Smith is better than a third-round pick. That's the bottom line. And I do think there are two franchises in particular that you have guys that have worked for you if you're Brett Veach that you can make deals with. One in particular works up in Chicago, and Lord knows they need to build a wall in front of that quarterback. So there are options, but this tag was put on as non-exclusive. That tells me a couple of things, but how do you interpret the tag and what the type means?
To me, I'm surprised because a week ago they came out and said that they weren't going to tag him. I mean, the thought process was that they weren't going to tag him. And I thought at that point it meant that he was going to hit free agency because they decided that they weren't going to be able to afford him. I know we need to talk Trey Smith, but the reality is that it plays into everything. Joe Thuney and his $27 million is going to play into how this is going to work out with Trey Smith too. So, obviously they can come up with the money with the deal with Patrick Mahomes and restructure him and restructure Chris Jones. If you didn't catch it, the salary cap show, I had a ton of it yesterday, but the reality is he's probably going to get, when he gets a deal done, because I do think Kansas City gets a deal done with him. That sounds like that's what they want. I don't think he's going to end up traded. but they're going to have to carry him at 23.4. That's the interesting part, because right now they only have, according to Over the Cap, about $6 million in cap space.
Yeah, where's that coming from?
Well, you got to come up with 17 million. So where are you going to do that? Well, the easiest place is Patrick Mahomes, and that's easy to do. But the bigger thing is like I said, Joe Tooney plays into this too, because he's that $27 million cap hit. There's no way he's playing on that this year. So they've got to get something done with him and figure that out. But the one thing I will say about Trey Smith, there's rumors out there and they're talking, what they think the deal will be. I've heard 4 years, $23 million a year. And the whole reason I mention it is because when you start looking at what that's going to cost cap wise, while $23 million a year sounds like a lot in 2025, that really could end up being like $7, maybe $8 million in cap in 2025 because of proration of your bonus. I looked at Landon Dickerson's deal. He got a signing bonus of like $20 million. So you spread that over 4 years, that's like $5 million. I would assume it's going to be a little bit more than 20. So you probably about 6, 7, 8 million for the 2025. That's easy to do, but you have to get to 23.4 when free agency starts. That's the key. So they have 2 weeks essentially, because it's the 27th and free agency kicks off, I believe, the 15th of March or 12th of March, somewhere in there. But new league year, they have to be under the salary cap, and that will include the franchise tag. So they have to do whatever they're going to do to get under the salary cap for that day.
Which to me means they're trying to get that deal done. When you look at other guards around the league, APY highest, Chris Lindstrom at 20.5, Robert Hunt at 20 even, total guarantees in the 40 range, something similar here. If they really give him 23 and he is now the market-setting right guard, on top of having the market-setting center, that tells me a couple of things. Either Joe Tooney has told them that he decided to retire, or he's willing to take a hefty haircut. And that's the only way you can keep those three together.
And there's actually a third thing in my mind that actually says, and it's that they don't think that the free agent left tackle class is worth investing in, because you're not going to be able to do all of it.
Yeah.
So
there's not dollars to go around.
Right. So it's a question of, is Tooney going to take a cap hit, or is he going to take a haircut on his cap hit and give them money back, or sign an extension and take a huge drop in his cap hit, or is he retiring? I mean, both of those options are possible. I mean, if he retires, it's a 16. It frees up $16 million, which covers Trey Smith's contract. So to be clear, the franchise tag part of of Trey Smith's contract, if he retires, I'm not saying I want him to retire, but that would cover it.
Yeah.
So, but then you still have Jawan Taylor at $27 million almost too. So you're talking about 70, 80 million in linemen for the next couple of seasons.
You don't just roll out of bed and sign that much. That's a difficult number to get to. So what else are the impacts? Well, if they're working this hard to get Trey Smith signed back, neither Wanya Morris or Kingsley Suamataia are moving into that role. So if Joe Tooney does decide to hang it up, then I do believe that Kingsley can slide into guard, be your starter. You're looking for a left tackle. You're riding with Taylor, maybe at a reduced cost. Is there any way in your mind that you think they actually thin the herd at tackle because of this and go young across the board again?
I mean, are you talking about cutting Taylor?
Yeah.
They can't.
There's no financial reason, right?
It's $20 million guaranteed.
Yeah. And you lose that no matter what. So there's no reason to do it.
Right. So I can't see any possible reason that they would cut Taylor at this point. I understand a lot of people would want them to, but financially speaking, you can't afford to do that. You can't afford to tie up that much money, and it would actually be even more than that, because he has got he's got signing bonus on top of that. So it would cost them $34 million to cut him,
in dead money.
Is $7 million more than he costs against the cap this year.
Yeah. So it makes no sense whatsoever. And I wanted everyone to hear you say that rather than just me, because I don't see any way that they could even fathom that. So then it becomes either you believe in Kingsley and Joe's back, Joe's not back, and you can move Kingsley in there and you're still looking for left tackle. There are a couple of options there, but solidifying another interior offensive lineman of Trey's caliber, I think does a couple of things that we shouldn't forget about. A, it helps creep. The two of them together, not only their friendship off the field and everything, which we know is epic, but the way they play together on the field cannot be underrated, especially if you're looking at the prospect of possibly having Joe Tooney retire on you. You have to keep that interior, the shortest path to Patrick Mahomes, protected.
Well, and I would also say that you're in a position where you have two guys that basically don't miss games. Trey Smith has missed, one or two games maybe because of a concussion in his career. And Creed Humphrey hasn't missed any time. So you've got two guys that are going to be stalwarts that are going to play every single snap, and that's exactly what you need. And say what you want about Jawan Taylor, people are going to be frustrated. I understand it, but that basically brings center to the right side of your offensive line back. And really, while Taylor didn't play great, he played well enough. He was not the issue that left tackle was, which isn't saying much, but still something. And I do think that it's something that they can build around. Like he is passable for one more season. Are they going to pay him? Are they going to continue to pay him in 2026? I can't see it, but he's passable again for another season, and they don't really have much of a choice at this point. The issue that they run into is they invested in offensive line trying to protect Patrick, which is exactly what you need to do. And people will argue they missed on Taylor. Okay, maybe they missed on Taylor. They still won a Super Bowl with him.
Yeah.
I mean,
and you have to look at the alternative. If you don't have something better, you ride with what you got. That's the bottom line. If you're not improving, then you're getting worse. That's the way it goes. The interesting thing to me here is if you look at the Chiefs salary table, when this happens, whether the tag or whether the contract, 4 of the top 7 salaries on this roster are on the offensive line.
Yep.
And despite the complexities and the problems that left, that's part of the recipe to keeping this dynasty going and protecting Patrick Mahomes for the long term.
The bigger thing that tells me, though, is that they are also probably not done. And what I mean by that is I think that they're going to have to look at it from the perspective of going out and actually doing whatever they can to trade up for the tackle that they want.
Yeah.
Because if they're going to invest that much in the offensive line, they can't allow left tackle to be what it was this year.
Yeah, agreed. So how do they maximize both of these players? And a couple of intriguing pieces about Travis Kelce, that's coming up next. Okay, I'm throwing Chris a curveball here, folks. We did not plan this out, but it came to me. We're going to talk about how do we make the most of these two players returning one way or the other in just a minute. But I want to have a little bit of fun because this is the stuff that drives me nuts. And if this is the swan song, if this is the encore of the Eras Tour or whatever you want to call it, and yes, I'm going to make a couple of Taylor Swift references for the next year, folks. It's going to be okay. But if Travis is doing this and he took this time and he's made this decision, this is the farewell tour. The last time you see you two on stage, this is it right here. I have a feeling that Travis Kelce in particular is going to do a couple of things that maybe no one's seen anybody do before. So I want to play in and out real quick, and I'm going to start with you. Will Travis lateral for a touchdown in his final season?
Yes. In.
Okay, that was easy.
100% in.
Okay, I'm in as well.
He should have had one already in his career. So, yes,
Yep.
In.
Okay. Number 2, and then if you have some, great. Andy Reid will let Travis Kelce throw a pass and attempt to score. I'm not going to say it does, but he's going to let him throw it again. Am I crazy?
In. As much as it pains me to say it, I'm in on that. I think that he's going to let him do it. It went horribly the last time, but I think he probably will let him do it because of how horribly it went. And so the one thing I will say, and I want to say this because I didn't really get it done last segment when we were talking about Trey Smith and in the first segment with Kelce. To me, when you start talking about how to maximize in 2025, if you know that Travis Kelce, this is his last year, if he's told you that, or if you think it's his last year, which I would imagine it probably is, you sell out. Like, you maximize whatever you can. And I don't know what that's going to entail. I don't know how much they're going to talk about and what they're going to do, but salary cap wise, restructure Chris Jones, use that to, bring in some off or some defensive linemen, do whatever you can to give yourself the best chance to go win a Super Bowl on Kelce's last season.
Yeah, I am 100% with you. So how do you maximize? How do you do that? Well, the cap is one thing. And folks, all off season, we are going to have cap related content on Thursdays. Do not miss that. All the wranglings, all the crazy ideas that I will come up with draft wise, free agency wise, will come back down to earth on Thursdays because I am not going to limit myself to the craziness, but we have to keep that in mind. So whatever cap space they have to make, as you said, no matter who they have to restructure or take it from, they're going to do that. How do you maximize? First, Travis Kelce. For me, it is reducing the snap count more. It is shifting that offense to the perimeters to make the wide receivers, now that you have two young guys that you feel you can feed, the primary targets, and take some of that load off of him. Because I don't care about weeks 1 through 12. I care about the last 5 games of the regular season, and I care about the playoffs. That's it for me.
And that drives people crazy, just not even thinking about the first 12 games. No, I don't disagree with you. I'm sitting here thinking about it going, it makes sense. Kansas City didn't show anything all season long. They didn't really even show anything in the playoffs. You get to their playoff games, they didn't really show much in their playoff games before the Super Bowl. And then obviously in the Super Bowl, everything fell apart and they couldn't get anything done. So they held everything close to the vest until it didn't matter. But the reality is, I think you're right. I think that the first 12 weeks really don't matter for this team. And as long as they can get to the playoffs, I think that they're going to be fine. I think they have shown continually that they get better at the end of the season and when games escalate. And the nice thing is no matter who you draft in this year, you're going to have all of your players from the last couple of years that you've drafted that now have Super Bowl experience for the past 3 seasons. And whether or not obviously it's a loss and it sucks and it stings, but it's still a scenario where they have the Super Bowl experience. They played in big games. They played in big playoff games. They played in the biggest playoff game that is out there. And they know what that's like. So going back isn't going to be a big deal. And the only people you have to bring along are the ones that haven't ever been there before. That's a huge advantage for the Chiefs.
So switch it now. How do you maximize Trey Smith? For me, obviously the money is life-changing for him. It should allow him to do a couple of extra things. I do think that he still has upside athletically to quicken his feet, to make sure that he can make those extra reaches, can make the little things where every now and then he'll fall short. So for me, it's about setting him up. The Chiefs came out and hired a dietitian last year to help with nutrition in the facility. They had a huge score change with the NFLPA survey. Do that more. Give every resource to Trey Smith that you can to maximize him so that he and Creed are as good an echelon of player as we've seen in the modern era as a pair. And I think that's important.
Yeah. And I think that you can use his ferociousness and his edge to your advantage. Put him out there in space, put him out there where he's going after guys and just pancaking them, because you can tell he loves doing it. And when you do stuff like that, your offensive linemen love you because they know they're getting ready to have some fun and take advantage of somebody that's a little bit smaller, and they get a chance to go hit somebody that they normally wouldn't get a chance to go hit. Take advantage of his aggressiveness. Use that to your advantage. Use it every chance you get, and I think that they can definitely use that to their advantage this season. I'm going to be curious to see how he's still going to be paired with Creed Humphrey, and we know that. He's going to be paired with Jawan Taylor. So you feel like those 3 positions ought to be really good. Are you going to really start maybe running behind those 3 a little bit more? I mean, it could make a lot of sense.
I'm glad you said that, because
I know because I know you want to say it.
Absolutely. And that does require preemptive maneuver, in my opinion. You need a home run hitter. You need a back that can hit the hole and get out of dodge. You cannot plot anymore. You cannot power anymore. You have to have speed at the tailback position. But to protect both of these players, run the damn ball, Andy. That's what you have to do. I know that you are an older gentleman I don't even want to. I want to say 68. I'm not 100% on that. I'm going to double
he's
check.
66.
Okay. I don't care. You have to change your stripes a little bit. You have to give them what they need to protect both of those players, both your investment and your greatest of all time tight end on a farewell tour. You have to run the ball more and more effectively.
Well, and the greatest QB of all time for this organization and could end up being the greatest QB of all time for the NFL. So you have to protect them all. And anything you can do to help, make Patrick Mahomes' job easier is going to be a big deal. And I like what you say about getting a home run hitter. The problem that they're going to have is you're going to have to find that in the later rounds. Can you? Yes. But you're going to have to find it in the later rounds because you're not going to be able to pay somebody. And two, you're definitely not going to be drafting somebody early because you're going to have to invest everything you can into the left tackle position if you can't get somebody, if you don't know what you're going to do there as of right now. And I don't think the Chiefs do have a clue who their left tackle is going to be. They may have an idea of who they'd be okay with in free agency, but I don't think that list is very long either. And you're not going to be able to pay somebody good money in free agency. So it's tough. That is one of those positions where they have to get it figured out. And with everything else that they've invested in the offensive line, if they don't get that figured out, it's going to hamper them the entire season.
It certainly is. What did we miss? What do you want to see them do? How do you make the most of these two epic things happening within a couple of hours of each other on a day that I'm trying to watch the combine? Thank you, everyone. Appreciate that. If I missed something or you have another point, make sure that you hit us in the comments down below here on YouTube or on X on Locked On Chiefs or Chris Clark NFL or Ryan Tracy NFL. Hit us anywhere. We appreciate you guys being with us. We are going to have some momentary comments. I'll have things dropping on social as well as little snips all over the weekend here of the combine. And then we will be back on Monday to break it down for you, take the next steps, what we saw and what we need. Don't miss it. Make sure you like, sub, hit the bell. Check out another Locked On show for your next listen. Thanks for being with us. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you then.